For those who are bagging it out, I'm going, well, you've got to get out of the mindset of having a capped income. Be set up, sit yourself up in such a way that you can make any type of income.
All right, let's get into the show because I'm actually really excited about today's show. Got some great subjects I really want to talk about.
I never thought you'd be excited about tax.
Tax.
How's that for a segue? There you go, Derek. Get into it.
I am. No, I'm a
Go piss off some
Stage 3 is coming up on the tax cut starting next financial year. He's been rolling this out over a number of years.
Decade.
The government. Yeah, it's been like that. And the biggest change is to those in the brackets of earning between $45,000 and to $200,000.
So
right?
the main of the population of Australia.
That's where most people make their money. At the moment in the current financial year, they are split, right? So it's up to 18,201 to 45,000, and then it goes from 45,000 to 120, and then from 120 up to 180. Yep. And those brackets are high. The high end is 37%. The up to 100, below 120,000 is 32.5, okay. And then below, so that's from 45. That most Australians are paying at the moment 32.5, and we're not including Medicare levies, okay?
Right.
And that's between 45,000 and 120 grand. That's all being scrapped as of next July 1. When it then, most people are going to be in the bracket of 45,001 to 200,000, and will pay 30% tax. Which is lower than we would currently do.
Now, okay, normally talking about tax is really not the most exciting subject, but the reality is the main of Australia is going to be paying less tax. This is really, really good news. It's exciting. And I'm sure that the Labor Party are going to take full responsibility of how good this is, even though how many years has it been rolling out for?
Well, it was staged to be at this point, so it's not a surprise to anyone in the financial industry. What's fascinating about this is that one of the financial planners has jumped on social media and is talking about tax planning now, and a lot of people are reacting, oh, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and I'm going, that is such socialist thinking. The socialists are spitting the dummy.
You know what's really funny? You know what's really, really funny? So like we're going down to 30%. So Vietnam's flat tax rate across all brackets is 25%, and they are a socialist country.
Exactly.
Like,
here we are with a free market economy. It's going really well, paying more tax than a socialist country or a communist country. Absolutely ridiculous. People don't realize that in this part of the world, and when I say this part of the world,
taxed so heavily.
In the first world, again, I'm going to invert the commas a bit today, okay, but in the Western society here, we are literally paying more tax. We've got less freedoms than those in the East.
Well, look, put it this way, right? This is just income tax. This is not capital gains tax, GST, sales
payroll tax, land tax, stamp duty,
all that stuff.
Tax
on fuel, cigarettes, alcohol,
and,
all that stuff.
Hang on, they're not.
And there's going to be a black tax soon as well.
Oh, yes, can't wait for that one.
Which one?
Black tax.
Oh, dear. Yes.
Well, we've got rainbow tax, we've got red tape, blue tape.
I noticed I just talked over him for that one. I was going to say, but yeah, I love the fact that when you get your fuel, they say, oh, we haven't raised the tax on fuel. No, it's a tariff, mate. It's a tariff. Totally different thing.
You don't need to raise the tax. It's a percentage. If you buy it for more, the tax is naturally higher.
Look, a tariff is just a tax in a more expensive blouse, mate. That's all it is.
So this actual financial planner, I was listening to his video. It's quite long today, and it was actually I liked it. Give him a plug. It's at I am James Wrigley. Right. And he was talking about how in some situations, and of course, you've got to get specific advice on this from a financial planner in this instance. But he was saying things like, for many people, if you are in a situation where you can pay things down this year, you're going to be better off than next year because you pay more tax this year than you do next year. So anything that's tax deductible, pay it this year because you've got more income coming in that's tax-free. Next year is paying less tax next year. He's also doing this in terms of like investment properties. He's saying if you can pay down in a lump sum more interest rates on an investment property this year, you may be better off the next year because
keyword may.
and everybody's circumstances are different because you're getting more income from that property, which will be less taxed. So there's all these professionals are already starting to plan ahead for when July 1.
So just to be clear, this is for personal income tax. It's not business income tax.
Personal tax.
So it's someone who has their investment properties underneath their personal name really should go see a excellent financial planner.
They should. They should. And there's also situations.
So Derek can point you in the right direction. BlueSkyFactory.com.au.
We're not licensed financial planners, but we can. I
said point you in the right direction.
We're in that network, and I have contacts. So there you go. It's funny. I was talking to a financial planner just the other day. So
what a surprise!
Yeah, it's called the wife.
Oh dear! Oh dear!
You've missed me, haven't you?
Like a hole in the head, my friend. Tell you right now, like the hole in your head that's been covered with that beanie. Let me.
No, it's because I haven't had a haircut in like 3 weeks. Like my hair's so long at the moment.
I will say though, for people who have trust funds and this sort of stuff as well, this is a huge game changer, and this is what he's lining up because now this is, if you don't know financial tax stuff, right? There's a thing that you can distribute called a bucket company. Good old bucket company.
I have never heard that term.
You've never heard of a bucket company?
No.
Okay. No. Well, a lot of wealthy individuals know how to distribute to what we call bucket companies.
That's why I don't know. Okay.
This, in some situations, changes the whole game because bucket companies are typically taxed at 30%.
Right.
But if you can distribute to beneficiaries of a trust at 30%, then why have a bucket company, which is lessening the need for all these extra structures. And of course, it's a headache getting money out of a bucket company for various tax reasons, the compliance reasons. So it can be.
So it may actually simplify.
It does simplify a lot. So it's good for everyone from that perspective. So for those who are bagging it out, I'm going, well, you've got to get out of the mindset of having a capped income. Think of, you can make be set up, sit yourself up in such a way that you can make any type of income.
Well, to be frank,
which is
the
what a
ones
business
who
owner
are
does.
bagging it out are the ones who are,
Centrelink recipients,
who are just relying on the system to provide for them, right?
And they're living in mum and dad's apartment,
absolutely,
basements, and they're screaming with purple-coloured hair.
You know what? Yesterday was talking
and they need a safe space.
They do, and this isn't it, right? Just so you know. But I was talking to a young fella I know, 21 years old. Just yesterday. Anyway, he's trying to get he and his girlfriend are trying to get into their first house, and anyway, wow.
You know my thoughts on this one.
Oh, well, there's so many. But in this particular case, right, they're looking and they can't find a place. Like even places that are listed for $550,000. Now you think about that as your first home, over $500,000.
Yeah.
But those that are listed for $550,000 are literally going for the people in this book saying, "Oh, look, don't bother offering less than 600. You won't get a chance because people are, the demand, obviously, right?" So here's my point. This guy who's hardworking, who really does the right thing, all that sort of thing, is trying to be a great member of society. Is now going to have to. He's looking at small towns and commuting back into Perth every single day. Right now, we've seen this in the eastern states. We've seen this with people who live in places like Bendigo and Ballarat and stuff like that, where they have to train it in every day. So he's going to be driving literally over 3 hours per day just to do his job because he wants to own a home. Now, that is just wrong. That is just wrong.
See, this is where you can't compare the 1940s, 50s and all that like baby boomer era to now because it's the saying I love is you can't fight the same war twice. So back in those days, everything was geared up for people to actually own their own home.
Sure.
So now the property in Australia is so massively inflated. It's over the mark.
Yep.
Someone who's working 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. Let's say he's earning $120,000 a year.
Okay.
So this is, I don't know the situation, but it is, the market is not designed for you to buy a house within the metropolitan area. That's just not the market anymore. So people have to stop thinking, right, I'll buy my own home first, I'll pay that off, and then I'll buy an investment property afterwards.
Okay.
That industry no longer exists. That just does not work unless you've got dual income, no kids, and no other form of debt. So a lot of the people with that sort of income will probably have a credit card, they'll probably have car finances and a whole heap of other stuff. They just cannot afford it. That is not what today's society is.
So then look, hang on.
They've got to do what we did.
Right.
We did not buy our family home first. We actually bought it third. We bought 2 investment properties first and used the income from the investment properties to be able to buy a house in the metropolitan area.
Well, that does make sense. Seeing a family home at the moment is renting for about $700 a week, right? Okay, so that does make sense. But where are you going to live in the meantime? Mum and dad's.
Rent.
Right? Well, hang on.
Do you know how much rent is at the
Yeah,
moment?
I do
It's
because we've just
a
had a
lot.
property valuation done on our
Right.
Camillo place.
Right.
Mm.
It's look. There's a hole in the bucket theory here. The problem is exactly that. The people have got to have somewhere to live.
No.
They
There's
have
no
to have
hole in the
someone-
bucket.
There is a
There's
hole in the bucket.
The whole entire financial market, the legislation around owning a house and all that sort of stuff has changed. So people are living, assuming that their systems in 1940 are still current. They are not current. They need to understand the laws and legislation that's currently happening now, and they've got to live their life based on the laws that are happening now. There's no point living in 1945 and expecting it to be valid now.
Why? We've got a country, right? Honestly, cutting all the crap.
Simple.
Where we have plenty
Because
of
we
spa-
have
hang on, we have-
Labor and Liberals keep changing the goalposts.
Spot on.
So they
Okay.
need to understand the current legislation, not the 1945 legislation. Sorry.
You've got a point, and I know if I'm jumping the gun, tell me.
No,
if I'm
go
putting
for it.
words in your mouth, tell me. We have got so much land in this country.
There
No
is
infrastructure.
absolutely no need.
No infrastructure.
Well,
No, I
okay.
disagree.
Well, who says we need the infrastructure? All right.
we need power, we need internet, we need water, we need septic
but
tanks.
if you look at what's been
sewage.
happening over the last few decades, this is how real estate and developers have gone. They're going.
Well, this is a good segue into the next section.
We're going to buy all this land. It is. We're going to buy all this land, right? And then we're going to put big parks that everybody shares, and they're manicured gardens and this sort of stuff, and we'll all live this way. They're not sustainable.
No.
Right?
Correct.
They are not financially viable anymore. And if you could, because people think, oh, I'm getting all this and I don't have to pay for it. You are paying for it through your council rates,
Of course you are.
through
just that.
being on the sewage line, and all this stuff. It's all inbuilt in the cost of doing that.
And do you know what you're also paying
I'm not
for
put
because
this-
your block of land
sorry.
is so small?
The-
Okay, when I grew up, we could play cricket in my backyard,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
See, we played in the street and we smashed people's windows.
Well,
Like,
that's why
whatever
you're so
happened to
popular.
the
Right.
time when, like, this is one thing I love about my street, and this is why we'll never sell the house that we got in Camillo. We have kids barefoot running up and down the street until like the lights are on and everything like that, because all the parents know each other. We actually talk to each other. We actually have a 1950s family.
Now,
like, street.
I'm going to interrupt
It's
you.
really rare.
I'm going to interrupt you. I've been to his house, which is terrifying itself. No, that's it. In as much as, honestly, you drive into that street and it's 1985. And I love
There's
it.
kids
I
everywhere.
love it. It is exactly how we grew up, where kids could ride their bikes, get their skates on, whatever they want to do, play games. It is an absolute magnificent thing.
Half the time I don't know where the kids are, because I know they're either at the Extinction Rebellion house or at the house down the end of the street where they do a lot of welfare work with people with drug addiction problems, stuff like that. So Tim and Steph, amazing people. Could be next door with Arthur and Ramona, who are like the 70-year-old grandparents. They'll help you with anything on the one condition. You've got to learn how to do it yourself.
Ah, like that.
So like they'll build you a table, but they say, right, this is a planer, this is a hammer, this is a power drill, this is, they teach you so you can do it yourself.
Now I'm going to.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. And then, okay, here's where again, like we're having this with this mashing of talking about finance and politics or society. And the reality is society has changed. And for the last 40 years, okay, we've had media, we've had politicians all selling fear. Every second bloody bloke's a pedo and all that kind of carry on terror.
I hate to say it's probably
in
political sphere is probably true.
Certainly up at Harvest Terrace anyway. But anyway, But what I'm getting at is it's changed that. And that 1985 neighborhood is an incredible rarity now.
Oh,
And
it
kids are
doesn't
hitting
exist.
It's really, really sad. Now,
We've got the golden
Now-
goose.
well, you have absolutely. Now, getting to your point though, we've got these lovely parks and things around the place, and most of them are absolutely underutilized or not utilized at all.
The biggest
because of
problem
that issue.
Do you know why people don't use the parks now?
Why?
Because that's where all the crackheads, the drug addicts, that's the amount of syringes, like walking where Celeste's school used to be. There's an amazing park, and then there's boxes for the animals up in the trees. Like, it's really well done. I've lost count of the number of needles I've had to pick up in parks because the street where we can see the kids is safe for our kids to play on. Even with the cars going up and down the roads, the park is not safe for my kids. I can't go to the park and say, right, go run right. I have to inspect the entire park, because I found one time we were there and there was a guy stripped butt naked getting dressed again because he was a homeless guy. He had no privacy to go get dressed. So parks now are not safe for kids.
Let's highlight this. And it was interesting. I've never been there, but hearing Shaquille's story, a good friend of mine, stories about Dubai, right?
Yep.
Dubai, what was that when it started all those years ago? Just a sandpit, really.
It was a desert.
Let's make it something. But here's the thing. They're saying they put in wealth. They made it wealthy. They made it and attracted international business. Now, there are issues there in terms of the cost of living now because you've got to live in those apartments and they will cost you a fair bit. But when you say there's a lack of infrastructure, it's what you make of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is that we've got this mindset here in some parts of Australia where it's obviously people got to live where the jobs are. Okay. I get that because they got to pay for what they're living in, etc. But the jobs are there, the opportunities are what you make of it. It doesn't all have to be manicured parks. Why do we all have to be on the same mainstream sewage? I mean, that's an extra expense in building
stupid,
it.
in my opinion.
Yep.
So our water bill is about $180 bi-monthly, and our actual usage is only about $40. The rest of it is sewerage and having a connection.
Yep.
Like, it's insane.
Yep.
There you go.
So, and people complain
But
about power.
they want you on the grid. And they want you in the little 15-minute
you'll love this
city type push that's going on at the moment, where you can just walk wherever you want to. And you're seeing that in developments where you're going, why are all these high-rise apartments going on? And this is way out in the suburbs.
It is. And there should not be high-rise in the suburbs. I don't understand that in any way, shape, or form. Look,
I can explain it, but why don't we go to a break?
We're going to go to a break. I'll say this very quickly, though, before we go to the break. Look, a couple of months ago, I had an absolute, privilege of going in a light aircraft, little flight down to Mandurah, and just looking at all the land, left, right, and center. When you're looking from that perspective, changes your attitude, And whenever I hear, there's a shortage of land in Perth, no.
We're really spaced
It's a couple of organisations. It's Pete, it's Satterley, it's those who are entrenched with the West Australian government, who are controlling the release of the land. When we talk about the government doing it, it's not. It's private enterprise controlling it via other means. There is plenty of land, and quite frankly, we could, if we wanted to, if we genuinely stood up against all of this, we could actually recreate that attitude of, and like me, I grew up with when the lights came on, that's when I went home, right?
Yeah.
We can recreate it.
Personally,
we choose not to, we've got a lot of laziness.
I would like to see a lot of land left vacant.
Yeah.
I don't mind having a spaced out city, because it gives you, you can go for trips, you can do stuff. You got, like you said, with the parks and all that sort of stuff. Whatever happened to allowing motorbikes to ride through the bushes and all that sort of stuff? All the fun, stupid shit you got up to as a kid is all banned now.
Well, you can thank Karen for that.
Yeah, exactly. And Kevin.
Yes, Karen and Kevin. All right, time for a break, gentlemen. It is, of course, the Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia.
Earlier, I was talking about black tape and all this sort of stuff. So we've had a bit of a win with the Aboriginal Heritage Act getting repealed, and it's going back to the 1972 Act. So now, why is this important on a finance show? Because a lot of people thought this was just about farmers. Original, the 1972 Act is fine. Just leave it alone. It worked. It did what it needed to do. The 2021 Act was an absolute dog's dinner. It was shit, to say the least. The problem is, every time, so for example, I've been in Geraldton, and one of the reasons we were rushing through the repairs, because it's a strata property. So we got a set of duplexes of about 1,200 square meters, right? So we were immediately a class 2, like a tier 2.
Right.
We did nothing to the land. We were painting, changing doors, and putting new floors in. I had to go get my property inspected by a local Aboriginal elder.
No way.
100% true. Because we were immediately tier 2. Any maintenance or repairs to a strata property over 1,100 square meters had to be inspected.
That is just crazy.
So this is a type of bullshit that was in this act. So this is just for a property owner who wants to do some repairs to their property.
Yep.
So let's look at this even further. So I know it's being repealed, but we need to understand what was in that act. So if you are subdividing land to create more land, you're immediately a tier 3. Because you're going to be either adding, changing, modifying the land itself, which means full investigation, archaeologists, and all that sort of shit that goes on. There was 2 situations which came up. So there's one up north for $25,000 for an application, and the other one's $2.5 million. Okay, one of these guys, I think it was the $25,000 guy, was actually also an Aboriginal from the local tribe.
Okay.
So this is the kind of bullshit that was going on. Now, on top of that, they had free access to your land. Now, I don't know if you know about Geraldton or not. The crime rates between Indigenous versus non-Indigenous is chalk and cheese. It's absolutely insane. So a lot of landowners just saying there's no way in hell I'm going to let them come into my land, case it out so they know what to come back and steal later on, which I hate to say is we are always on guard against break-ins, because the thing is, it's not just someone's broken in, stolen shit and ran away. It's they've broken in. if you try to say anything, you get the absolute living of Jesus beaten out of you. I've had axes pulled on me. Someone tried to stab me with a Phillips head screwdriver. And the thing is, these are all minors. So they don't even get in jail. So Quigley's actually one of the police officers when they set our properties on fire, the police officer actually said, we can't open up an incident report on this one because the suspect is under 12 years old as an Aboriginal. The police actually said they can't do anything about it. So, but all of this has been repelled. What does it matter? Well, the thing is, if you actually listen to what Roger Cook, Shifty Cook, or whatever you want to call him now, we gave McGowan a nickname, so we got to come up one with Crook. He says that the rollout was botched, so they're going to go back to the 1972 Act, but they're going to amend it to achieve our goals. So they're now they're in the process of amending the 1972 Act. So the 1972 Act is still going to be in existence, but they're going to amend it to achieve their goals to make sure that Dukin doesn't happen again.
So while we're all celebrating, the reality is they were just
it's a delay.
They were running around the back door.
Yeah, it was always an advisory process, wasn't it? Right?
No, not the 2021 process.
The new one.
The new one was not an advisory. They had total control. Right. If you wanted to do anything, you had to go through the local LARCs, and the LARCs is the one that had total control. Now, if there wasn't a LARCs, and I asked this, I was at Northern at one of the workshops, and I said, will the LARCs have anything to do with native title, or is native title got anything to do with any of this? And they said, oh, no, native title has nothing to do with this. And then they went to the next slide. Oh, if the local LARCs isn't around, then you go to the native title group. Like literally within 30 seconds of it. So the LARCs is the local area Aboriginal corporation or whatever it is. The next one, if they don't exist, which at the time of rollout, none of them existed, then you had to go to your native title group. Which the whole process is messed up. So where does this become a problem? So at the moment in WA, we have roughly 30,000 people homeless. You're talking about all that land that's not released. What's happening is a lot of these people were actually buying land, hoping to subdivide them to create more property for people to actually live in. The government's also turned around and said, I think it was 50,000 houses over all of Australia over 5 years, the government housing scheme that they're trying to push through, which will probably end up causing a double dissolution later this year. So on top of that, we've already got 30,000 people short. We're bringing in 1.2 million people over 2 years. Now, let's assume 10% of those people come to WA. Now, that's about 30 to 40,000 houses that we're already short.
Hang on, it's worse than that. The figures that came out on homeless in Western Australia have actually apparently hit 70,000.
There you go.
70,000 homeless.
So assuming that there's couples in there as well, let's assume all of them are a couple with a few kids, whatever. So that's 35. Let's say 25 to 30,000 houses that we're already short.
Yeah.
We're going to have another 40,000 for these migrants coming in. That's not even taken into natural population growth.
Yeah.
Where the hell are these people going to live?
I'm noticing a pattern.
Like
internationally.
Yes.
New York's got a housing crisis.
I know.
Right?
I noticed that too.
England's got a housing crisis.
I wonder what's going on.
Ireland's got a housing crisis.
They don't have a housing crisis. Everyone lives out the pub.
Is this?
Irishman walked out of the bar.
Do you know what?
Never happened.
Okay. Ultimately, no matter how you swing this kind of runs back to a particular name. Okay.
We got a name for Cook. Dodgy Crook.
Okay. That works for me. Klaus Schwab. Okay. Since the World Economic Forum came into play, we've just seen this systematic change of our society. Right.
Attempts.
Okay. We had the World War. Okay. Well, two of them, in fact. But the last one, okay, with finishing in 45. All right.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about Iraq.
No. I'm going to wrong guy. But we go further back. We go a bit further back. And we've got a situation where, it wasn't a case of, oh, look, these different countries fighting. Germany actually literally tried to take over the world. Okay, not a small.
So what America's doing at the moment?
Well, pretty much. But no. But okay, I've got a little bit of a theory about this. Okay, I don't think that after the war and a whole bit, and how many of them took off to South America and lived in Argentina and all of that kind of carry on. Now, I'm not being anti-German by any stretch. I've got some great German people in my life, right? But
they make great sausages.
What I'm getting at is, to my mind, the regime is still very much alive. They've just remarketed.
Yeah, well, they're moving people. I mean, this is a whole issue. You were talking during the break about the whole release of the movie Sounds of Freedom, right?
Yep.
And this is about human trafficking. Well, it's still happening across the US border. the border has just been no of those politicians. Biden won't go down there. Kamala Harris won't go down there. They won't have a look at the problem. Nothing to see here, and yet thousands are pouring in over the US to weaken it. They're also doing this across the channel, the English channel, into England and into Ireland. Now,
random question here. Great Wall of China, is it racist?
Look, I don't. I think it's important.
Well, it was literally built to keep the Mongolians out of China.
Hang on. I know.
So how's the border wall any different?
It's not. Okay, because you know what? Sovereignty is important.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what? There's no issue. I have no issue with the Great Wall of China.
I don't know how we got onto this.
Neither do I.
But my point is this. I mean, and bringing it back to your point, I'm noticing also a pattern here with Labor. You're probably too young to remember this, Travis, and that is a compliment. You remember when the Australia card was on the table?
I do. Yeah, and we were against that, weren't we?
And people were marching in their thousands.
We just got a Medicare card now.
Exactly. They passed legislation shortly after. All right, we'll back off. We won't do the Australia card. And what do? They passed legislation that if you were opening up a bank account, you had to have your tax file number attached, which is getting the same effect as what they were trying to push with the Australia card. Now, that's my concern in this situation. When I heard about backing off, so to speak, about the Cultural Heritage Act, they're going to try just another avenue to slip it under the door. And that's what we've got to be on the lookout for.
I think, and that's happening. Okay, that's happening.
It will happen.
And look, I think everybody... through the last month or so, and in fact the last couple of months, but particularly through July, we had the Whitman sampler. We had the taste of the voice, here in WA. And the rest of the nations had a good look. And now I'm actually seeing polls that are actually showing over 80% of Australians plan to vote no, right? Now,
I know the one you're talking about. That was Tasmania. The problem is the sample size was so tiny. You can't.
No, it was actually a Sky TV one, which would be an interesting conversation to have later. Yeah. But look, here's my point: is no matter what you say, here's the problem. This conversation we're having. Oh my God, you're racist. You're racist. You're racist. You're racist. No, we're not racist. In fact, well, I'm certainly not, and two men I'm sitting with are not either. We care about this country, and we care about our sovereignty, and we care about equality. Now, when you make one particular sort of person, a race or a background or a skin color special, have them with special rights, you are being racist.
Well, you're being used.
Absolutely,
this is the power brokers are trying to use cultural guilt upon the Indigenous people, and so to pass legislation that is a Trojan horse. That's the issue.
No doubt about it.
It's not so much about racism, but it's using that cultural guilt. And we had an episode on that a couple of weeks ago.
We did, and
that's what the pattern is noticing globally as well. Is you've treated these people wrong, or you should be treating them
ashamed
differently, and that's happening. They're using that same trick globally.
Absolutely,
of the cultural guilt.
Absolutely. And, they're trying to make us as this generation and the generations around us guilty for something we did not do. You can't judge society today on the standards of many, many years ago. The world has changed. We're doing things better. Okay. And look, there has always been winners and losers through. When you talk about slavery, if you're going to go down that route, let's cut the crap. I mean, the greatest majority of slaves in the world were white, right? But they want to make that a black issue. No matter what, when you throw the race card into it, when you say call someone a racist or this or an obic or whatever, quite frankly, you've lost the argument. What you're saying, you're walking into that argument and you're saying, I haven't got the intelligence, or the critical thinking ability to actually have a proper discussion about this. That's the problem. It is that quick fix, and unfortunately, because our social media companies are right on top of that, and if you say anything, you're jumped upon. It is absolutely squashing free speech. It's got to stop. Right? It's all interwoven with each other. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Now I see Travis. He's looking at the screen very intently.
Yep.
Would you like to give us an update, mate?
So what I'm doing is the bit that I always find interesting, especially when people start throwing the racism word here. I'm actually on the federal registration or legislation at the moment. It's the Racial Vilification Act. I forget what they actually call it, 1975. So the thing is with racism, everyone thinks racism is just excluding someone from something. So you can't go into this bar because you're black, or you can't go into this area because you're white and stuff like that. That's flat out racial vilification.
Okay.
The thing is, under the Anti-Discrimination Act, it's not just excluding someone from something.
Yep.
It's, let's say I apply for a job, and then Chinese person applies for a job.
Sure.
And they give me the job because I'm white.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a form of racism. You cannot preference one race over another.
Absolutely.
It's got to be based purely on things. So it's not just the exclusion, it's the making someone like an elite or putting someone up on a pedestal. So I'm just trying to find the actual wording of it.
And we've got to go to a break in a moment, but just want to throw this forward too, right? We saw all these amazing changes in the early 70s, and there was a lot going on. Okay, we lost the gold standard in 72. Right, the family court was introduced in 75, effectively. We had all these changes in Australia, particularly that were brought on by the Gough Whitlam government, who were so incompetent they were fired. Let's face it. I'm and when we look at other countries, I'm seeing social policy change so much in those basically those first few years, I guess, of the 70s. It seems like all of that messing with society is now coming to fruition to me.
Yeah, 50 years ago now, it's all kind of coming to a point where you're going, no more. This is going on for decades.
It has.
And it's like God's pulling the carpet out from under it and going, no, not happening anymore. And that's really exciting from that perspective.
It really is, actually.
Because what we're in, and I've said it before, we're in a time where the truth is coming out. The truth has a darn way of coming out. And we are seeing, I was even looking at, some other news stuff that was coming across my line, the stuff that was happening in 2015, 2016, related to some foreign politics. And you're just going, it's all creeping out. And that's what's really, really exciting.
The bit that I find problematic the most, and I've said this on the show before, is the moment you label someone, you create that mental image, them versus us, or them versus them sort of thing. So the problem is, and Aaron's have said this, corruption rots from the top down. The problem is, in Parliament, we have a Minister for Women's Affairs. We have a Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. We have all these ministers that label certain groups of people.
That's right.
So we need to, and this is my personal belief, and I think it was Sarah Game who actually petitioned in South Australia to have a minister for men.
Yes, she did.
And she's actually tabled saying, why isn't there a minister for men?
You know what? There's even a better idea.
So
how about we get rid of the Minister for Women? So why don't we get rid of the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs? The fact is, we're all Australians. It doesn't matter what our gender is.
Those labels, because when you create labels on people, you create them versus us, and humans are naturally competitive.
Yes.
So it's just part of us. We are always going to compete. So if there's just no, and this is something I've tried to live my life personally, is I try not to label people. If you're not being an absolute arsehole to me, then I'll be an arsehole back. It's not because you're black or a woman or this or that and that, whatever. I really, really do not give a shit. You try to stab me with a knife, I'll probably punch you in the face.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. It's not because I'm a racist or anything like that. I just really don't care. And people need to stop labeling each other.
It was like the video that where Morgan Freeman was interviewed and says, how do you feel about Black History Month?
How dare you summarize my history?
And it's
month.
like,
I loved it.
I don't feel anything at all for it. And why should I be labeled? And I think, again, it comes back to the victim mentality that's undermining all of this.
So true.
Is we make victims of people. And the problem is, yes, you may have been taken advantage of and it wasn't fair. But if you stay in that mindset of I'm a victim for the rest of my life, that is not serving you either, because one, you're not being healed. One, you're not working on yourself and through that situation. And three, you are missing out on so many opportunities to live life in an abundant way.
Okay, we're having a good chat. We're talking about all these incredibly important issues that actually, when we're talking finance, but we're talking about finance and how the way it mixes with society, the changes in society, obviously, politics. And in this particular case, looking down the screen, how media is changing at the moment. Jarek, you thought I'd be pleased about this. I'm actually not. I do want the mainstream media to basically burn in hell, but at the same time,
at least you're upfront about it.
Why lie about these things? Well, I'm just, over the last how many years we've been lied to, and we've been sold nothing but narrative and propaganda, for such a long time. And don't get me wrong, Fox is definitely one of those that does that. But one thing I have enjoyed about Fox or Sky News and that sort of thing is the fact that we've actually had something from, in some cases, the centre right. Okay, so not just far left ideology or things. So almost like a resistance, you know, which has been a very positive thing. But what's going on there, mate?
Well, Rupert Murdoch's media empire is suffering some issues. It's dropped 75% in profit. With News Corporation reporting that News Corp on Thursday recorded 187 million in net profit for the 2023 financial year. That's down 760 million the previous year, and basically it's spans across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. We're talking things like the Wall Street Journal publisher, Dow Jones and Company, The Sun, News Corp Australia. And what they're doing is they're saying that a lot of the profit is due to lower print and digital advertising at News Corp Australia, low print advertising in the UK News Corp. And you've also got to remember that Fox News, that whole Dominion settlement cost them $54 million.
Not a small amount.
And they lost their primetime guy, Tucker Carlson, in the process.
Now, so you lost a guy who was their highest rating show by far. And when they've replaced him, I mean, basically they're getting, first initially it dropped by 50%, literally, dropped in half. And I'm not absolutely 100% sure, so I don't want to tell any fibs, but last time I looked, the audience at the same time was about 20% of what it was before. So it's a massive thing. And you look at what Tucker's doing on Twitter.
You should see his numbers; they're insane.
They're absolutely insane, right? Okay, and so, he's doing the shows he wants to. He's out there being independent journalist again, which is just
people fantastic. Are actually listening. So a lot of people have gone independent, and then their numbers just hit the mic. The numbers really dropped down, but they've exploded.
Oh, absolutely.
So for the people who want to play along at home, I have posted the news link to yahoo.com. Rupert Murdoch News Corp sees losses. So.
Yeah, the Fox Corp has other issues too about the coverage of the 2020 election defamation suits.
Absolutely.
They've also had the issue, News Corp British is being sued by Prince Harry for allegedly multiple unlawful acts allegedly committed over several decades, including hacking his phone. So that's going on in the background. So, you know, obviously the Royals sell newspapers and they sell headlines and that, and these kind of things are coming out. I think mainstream media is going for a big shake-up. I don't think CNN is going to recover from what it's done. And of course, they're not owned by Murdoch. They're owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. They have just push. It's ironic, too, to think that, you know, Twitter, when it was called that, now it's called something else, X. But it was fascinating that they were trying to... They got so many headlines through Donald Trump's and the coverage on them, and they hated him. But banning his account was the worst thing they could have done.
Spot on.
When Trump was not at the White House anymore, there were the ratings for CNN.
Oh, that's right.
They had nothing more to spout hate upon.
No, exactly. And look at the amount of their high, you know, like Don Lemon being let go because he was just absolutely
trash. Let's be honest, trash.
Well, no, it comes from that. Really, I think the instigating thing was the conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy, or I can't pronounce his name correctly there, but the presidential candidate, basically accusing a man there, of Indian heritage, of not understanding, you know, what it's like to, you know, be of darker skin. Just he was so out of touch, right, and so pushing this narrative of division and, you know, Black Lives Matter and all of that sort of thing, where you've got, you know, Vivek, who basically was bringing people together, which is fantastic, what it should be. CNN to me, I can't even believe that they're still around. When you see some of their ratings, which are 100,000, and I'm actually going to buy.
They had to cut their streaming service.
Yeah,
that wasn't working for them. And Disney's suffering the same sort of stuff as well, as far as mainstream media is concerned. Their stock price over the last 2 years has gone down below 50%. They're going to have huge issues because you got to remember with making movies, you know, you're 3 to 5 to 7 years in the pipeline of making productions. Now, those films that are coming out with those woke tendencies, which the American public are rejecting, saying we're not buying tickets to this stuff, we're cutting our streaming services, we're boycotting you. It's very hard for a big ship to turn around like that because they've been in the pipeline for so long. And they announced recently with their CEO that they're cutting the big blockbuster presentations. They're trying to do more with less in terms of getting reducing the amount of content they're producing on their TV channel as well. So they're having to make cutbacks as well. So it's really fascinating to see this whole media way it's done and being absolutely shaken up, which opens the doors for other players coming in. We've seen Jeremy O'Keefe with his coverage. What was the company he formerly was in control of, but now he's gone out on his own. These independent reporters. It escapes me. You know the company I'm talking about?
No, you've lost me on that one.
All right. He's the one who he was very involved with the Pfizer whistleblower in bringing that to light. Also, Pfizer's corruptions in terms of
look, I know I could see his face, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, Jeremy O'Keefe is his name. So that's been going on. We're seeing more of the alternative reporters rise up. It's whether they can now run companies and turn it into a bit of a mainstream and also resist the temptation of being bought out. They've really got to look at the business model moving forward for media, because as soon as there's an old line, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right?
Here lies the whole problem, right? Yeah. So to be honest and be truthful, you're going to burn bridges here, and that is the big problem. And like the issue we've had over the last few years with the West Australian media being absolutely in bed with the government. What happens, unfortunately, is these people get this power and advertisers get power, and you lose your power as an independent. Now, I'll give you an example of this that I'm very proud of, quite frankly.
Project Veritas.
Well, no, I'm going to
James O'Keefe.
That is the one.
James O'Keefe. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well,
thank you, AW71 and Josh McCurry.
Really appreciate that. I'm going to actually use this little opportunity to I don't know, to blow some
smoke out your
own butts here. Do you know what's really great? You know what's happening right now with Edge Radio Australia?
I don't know. I've been in hibernation for
maybe
3 weeks.
Maybe because you've been missing for 3 weeks, but I'll tell you this right now. Right now, Edge Radio Australia has a greater social media following. Actually, I shouldn't say greater. Basically, on par with a major radio station here in Western Australia. That shouldn't happen. Okay,
hang on. Can you tell me which one?
No, not on here. But I'll tell you right now, our interaction is of the same level of a station in Perth that does a lot of talk back and what kind of carry on.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Now, since that station went very left and very woke, their numbers are going down. I'm loving the fact very quietly. It's a shame
because I used to actually enjoy listening.
And you're not the only one.
If I did listen to Talkback Radio, that's the one I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were great.
And believe it or not, they actually allowed me on air a couple of times.
There you go. But what I'm saying is people are actually now going, okay, you know, we don't have to stick with the mainstream. We can look at other alternatives.
We need to bring back to balanced journalism reporting, right? Where you actually present both sides of the story and the viewer can actually make up their mind. But what happened was they passed legislation in the United States where you could do one-sided type reporting. And this is why you had factions kind of coming in.
And the thing is, it's getting to the point where Australia's going to have that soon with the misinformation bill coming out. So
everybody has to fire up about that. Everybody, you need to sign petitions. You have to write to your local parliamentarian, all that sort of thing.
Well, the thing
has to be stopped.
We are going to have an opportunity very, very shortly, because my understanding is Albanese has put his housing bill back up. And my understanding, it hasn't been changed. It's already been rejected once. Once it gets rejected again, that means he now qualifies for a double dissolution election.
Yes.
So at the last federal election, parties like One Nation finished 7th in every single state, which means that we'll have a Freedom Senator in WA, New South Wales, Queensland. Well, obviously Pauline will still get in. We may lose one in Queensland, which I hope we don't, but we'll pick up in every other state.
Fantastic. Well, look, whatever party it is,
the reality is state election in March.
Yes, we do. Whatever party it is, the fact is we need greater representation across the board. This two-party system is doing nothing but damage. So there we go.
So the biggest thing is we need people who aren't previously involved in politics to actually get off their ass and get involved.
Yep. And with that, we're going to end the show. Gentlemen, would you have any last thoughts?
I'm excited. I'm excited to where the direction the world is going.
I'm excited.
Big Kev.
People are becoming aware of what's actually happening. People are taking action. Governments are starting to hear, even though, you know, things can go different ways. So the war is, the battle is certainly not finished.
Absolutely. Yep.
But we've got to be encouraged by what's changing and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing.
All right.